Hello guys, welcome to another Substance Designer tutorial. In this one, we're gonna create a sci-fi metal panel here. So to start with, I'm gonna go for File and New Substance, and I'm gonna go for the physically base and call this guy sci-fi, and then okay, all right. And then I'm gonna go ahead and change my my scene into a cylindrical shape, which is gonna be this one. All right, just feel better with that. And then what else? Yes, I want to change the material also to the tessellation here. And in the edit, just crank up the scale a little bit. All right, cool. So when that is done, I then can focus on the building of the shapes. To start with, I'm going to create a transform 2D. Okay. And then I'm going to create a ambient occlusion here. And that goes to the, oh, I don't have a AO yet. So let me grab the hat and Control D to duplicate it. Double click on this new hat. I'm gonna change it to ambient occlusion. If that's easier, you can go down to the usage and choose ambient occlusion. That way you can copy that and paste it over here and over here. Okay, that way we can connect that over here. Right. You also wanted to drag this guy over here by holding down the red mouse button and say ambient occlusion. Okay, that way we're using that as ambient occlusion. Okay. And then what else? Yes, we need to use also that to control the head. And then eventually a normal. And that goes to the normal over here. Right, cool. So those are the shape related nodes, and the others I can drag them over to the top. Alright, now just to test it, I can create a shape node and make my shape smaller and drag that over to the transform. You can see now it's bumping out like that. Alright, cool. Now just to make those looks a little bit better, I can create uniform colors. Okay, Control D to duplicate this guy twice and connect that. And for these guys, they are gonna be grayscale and goes to the roughness and metallic. For the color, I'm just gonna go for something medium, and for the roughness, a little bit rougher, and metallic, maybe very metallic kind of thing. So some sort of like a metal base to start with. Maybe more shiny. I mean, maybe a little bit more shiny. Okay, cool. So then I want to start build my actual shapes. I'll start with a polygon right here, and the polygon will have 8 sides, and then I'm gonna go for a transform. Okay, and then I'm gonna change the transform tiling mode to absolutely no tiling, and then I'm gonna shrink it down over here, holding down Control Shift, and drag it a little bit over to the side. Okay, now I'm gonna use this symmetric slice. If I connect that right now, I will have an arrow because this one requires a color, but I'm using a grayscale, so I need to use the gradient map to fix that. Okay, I don't know why they stopped doing the automatic thing, but you can hit D button to dock that over here. That should happen in older versions. Anyway, so in the symmetric slice, I'm going to change the mode to something like this. So it's like slicing across this diagonal direction and mirror it from this side to the other side. This is what I'm getting, like a little sci-fi panel, right? Okay, cool. Now just to make things a little bit more interesting, I can use this thing called tile sampler, which is tile sampler. All right, and it's not supposed to be connected to that, so let me delete that. Okay, I'm gonna create a grayscale conversion here and then connect that to the pattern input. Hit the button to dock it over there. Okay, now this tile sampler, then we'll have to use the pattern here, use the pattern input, which will be reading whatever that is connected to the pattern input 1. Okay. Now if I double click on this, you can see it's basically tiling this guy over. Now there are a bunch of interesting things you can do down there in this node. You can control how much you want. I want to go all the way down to 4. Okay. And then here I can make the scale bigger so that they're a little bit bigger. Just to be able to see what's going on, I can also change the, underneath the color there is a random, color random. Okay. Alright. Anyway, back here to the top, I want to change a few things. I want to random their position, so they're like doing random things. Okay. I can also have the scale to be a little bit bigger. Just to form some interesting intersections between those shapes, I can also change the scale transform so they're different size. Alright, cool. When that is done, then I can use this node called edge detect. Okay, that will detect the edge and give me something like this. Okay, now I can go ahead and change the edge width. You can see when I crank that up, I'm seeing some of the actual panels are disappearing. Okay, and then if I use that as my head, you can see I got this cool panel populated around the surface. Okay, and after that, I can then go ahead and try to tweak the edge width to get the proper width I want to go for. Okay, I think this is good enough. So after that, I'm gonna go ahead and create another node called flood fill. Okay, flood fill is basically it's trying to find out all those different single pieces here, and it's filling them with UV colors or RGB colors, and from those colors then you can generate a lot of interesting information. Use flood fill 2 nodes. You can flood fill it to like a random grayscale. Okay. The reason I'm doing that is because then I can use the histogram scan here to go to different positions and change the contrast to something higher and just drag that up and down. You can see I'm basically trying to eliminate some of the panels. Okay. And drag that over here. You can see I'm basically trying to get lesser panels. Now I don't want to get rid of that much though, so I'm gonna drag down the positions, drag up the position. Okay, and then I could also lower down the contrast, so that way when I'm changing that, and I'm having also some variations on the hat. Okay, anyway, so I can maybe have a contrast go a little bit higher. Okay, all right, and then I can do. Let me move those guys over here so that they're a little bit far away. I can get rid of that if I wanted to. Again, by doing another histogram scan right over here. Can go up to the position and then the contrast. You can see I'm getting rid of that just to have some place that is empty. Okay, so this guy goes over there. Right, cool. And then on the bottom of that, I can go create maybe just something cheaper. How about this tile random? That would be something I can do. Okay. Or if you really want it to be a little bit more interesting, I can do like a transform, and that goes to here. You know what? Let me do a edge detect before that also. So we have like a smaller panels, and then I can shrink that down. Right, and that's going to be the bottom panel. Okay, and then I can do this hat blend here. The bottom one will be this guy, top one will be this guy, and that goes to the final result. And then I can go ahead and change the hat offset so that I have the upper panel to be on the top and lower panels to be down there. That way it feels just a little bit more detailed. And on this edge detection, I can say, okay, I want it to be not that rounded. I can shrink that down so that the bottom just appears to be very different. All right, cool. So afterwards, I can also go ahead and create one extra layer of pattern or panels on top So let me go ahead and do another edge detect over here, right? And for this guy, I'm gonna crank up the edge width, okay? And then this guy will be blended with the original one. And the operation here will be multiply, so we're getting rid of, you know, we're getting rid of some of the extra edges on around it. And then this one will be again hat blended on top of that guy. Let's go ahead and connect that. Okay. Now here we can again crank this up. You can see we're getting just another extra layer of panel on top. Alright, cool. Let me go ahead and change some of the value here. Maybe it's too shiny, so it's hard to see. Or I can also say, let's crank up the ambient occlusion. That way it's easier to see stuff. Not that helpful. Maybe the, let me change the roughness here and make it a little bit more rougher. That way we can see a little bit more stuff. Okay. Anyway, so those are the buildings of the shape. And I think this is probably okay for now, right? Now let's talk about how we can color this guy. It doesn't have any color yet. Basically, I have 3 layers of different parts, and I want those different layers to have different color, roughness, basically a different material. Okay. So in order to do that, I can go ahead and create a base material here, and this base material. Whoops. Let's delete that. So this base material, we're basically having all those necessary element for material, like the base color, normal, roughness. But I have my normal height and ambient occlusion already taken care of. So I'm gonna go here and say I don't really want those guys. You know what? You cannot really do that. So let's go ahead and just use this guy. And I just need to manually connect that to my different colors here, but because I need multiple ones, I'm gonna Control D to duplicate this guy, maybe just once for now, and then we can blend those two together by using a blend node and blend. Let's type in material, and then we have the material blend, which will be this guy. Okay, so material blend will blend multiple materials together. Again, we don't need that much here. We just need 3 channels, right? A base color, roughness, and metallic. And so we can go here and say, I don't need diffuse, normal, specular, or glossiness, but I need the metallic and roughness. I don't need the hat. So that way, this seems to be a little bit more simpler. I'm gonna connect my base color, roughness, and metallic from both materials to those 2 inputs, right? So roughness goes here, and oops, roughness goes to, whoops. I don't need diffuse either, so I'm not sure why this one's having diffuse. Maybe I just got connected, so that's why. Turn that to false. Okay, just toggle it again. So this guy again goes to the base color, and this guy goes to the roughness, and this guy goes to the metallic. Now the final result will then go to our base color and roughness and metallic. Now after that, I can go ahead and change the material. I'm gonna grab the bottom one and say you are gonna be dark. Okay, and then maybe you will have lesser roughness, and your metallic is 1. That's fun. And the other guy, let's just change that to something like a red color, right? So now I just need to have a grayscale mask to blend those 2 together. Okay, now that mask then can be, in this case, it can be my top. Okay, so this guy then will go to there. Okay, you can see we're basically masking out so that we're only having the top material to be on the top panels, and the others will be using this base material here. All right, let me make it a little bit brighter down there, a little bit brighter. Okay, cool. Now while I'm still doing this blend thing, I can Control D to duplicate this blend, and let me delete all the input. Let me have another blend to have actually the bottom one to be also a little bit different. So let me Control D to duplicate the material down there. All right, and then again the connection will be, you know, this blend, material blend, and then my new material here. Whoops. So the base color, roughness, and metallic, right? And I don't have a mask yet, so let me delete that. And now this one will then go to the final output. Okay. All right. Now I just need to pass in a proper mask for that, and that should be my base panel here. So this guy, actually I have simplified it before I do this. Let me actually use this guy. Yeah, that's the one that is determining the first layer of panel. Okay, so we can connect it there, and then let's see what happens if we go ahead and change this guy to maybe a even brighter color. You can see the bottom is actually changed. All right, cool. Now we have actually successfully blended 3 materials, right, with the alphas we generated down the way. Let me open the space a little bit more. Cool. So let's go ahead and do a little bit more change here. One thing I want to do is bevel my shape over here. Okay, so I'm going to create a bevel. And that goes to here, and that goes to, oops, here. Okay, and then I can determine how much do I want it to bevel. Okay, let me bevel outwards a little bit, so I will have my paint material only on the top of my bevel. Okay, that looks cool. You can hold down left mouse button and use your wheel to actually tweak the value, if that's easier. Okay. All right. So after that, one more thing I kind of wanted to change is I wanted to give it some imperfections. This paint is too perfect, right? And I want it to be scratched out a little bit. Okay. Now, so I have to do something with this mask that I'm using. Let me create a transform 2D node, grab it and drag it there, and connect that to the mask there. I just wanted to use this transform as a rerod. Don't know why they still don't have rerod. That's pretty standard in like Unreal Engine. Maya doesn't have that. But you know this should be something that, you know, that can be really convenient. Anyway, I have this transformation 2D, right? And then I'm gonna actually eat it in, or you know, have the damage to beat the edge up. To do that, I can create something called a slope blur grayscale. Okay, and then I need some slope to blur it. That can be any noise. So I'm gonna go ahead and create a noise here. Let's see, we can go for a simple pearly noise. So pearly noise, and that goes to the slope. Okay, now immediately you see something crazy here, and let's double click and take a look at here. You can see it's doing something dramatic. First thing I want to change is the sample here, so that it's able to sample more stuff. You can see now it gets a little bit more stable, and then we can shrink down or lower down the intensity, so we're not really doing that much of a blur. And also you can see it's eating out. To prevent that, instead of doing blur, I'm going to say we're going to do mean here. Mean with we're only going to eat in instead of extending out, or not extending out. Max will extend out but not eating in. Blur will do both. And again, mean will just eat inwards. Okay, that way we're basically trying to broken up the edge a little bit more, right? And here we can go to the pearly noise and change how big it is. If we make it bigger, the broken part will be having like a bigger variations, right? If we make it smaller, then we have smaller variations. And again, we can go ahead and change the intensity here to lower that down. Okay. All right, I just need a little bit first. Okay, that seems to be okay. And just because we use it once doesn't mean we cannot use it again, right? So let me create another slope blur over here. And this time I'm going to create smaller broken out part. So I'm going to use a different noise, and this time it's going to be a black and white, so BNW spots. Okay, and that goes to the slope here. Okay, all right. Now I'm going to again crank up the samples and lower down the intensity. All right, too small. Make that a little bit higher. You can see what I'm trying to do here, right? Again, we're going to use the mean here to just eat in. Okay. Now again, how much do you want it to beaten it up will be determined by two things. One is the intensity. Right, you can lower that down. Okay. And another little trick is you can also go to the black and white spots. You can lower down the actual size here, and that's make it a little bit more blurry, which will give you a softer result. Okay. All right. Cool. So now we have successfully broken the edge a little bit to make it shrink in a little bit, right? And after that, we can also add some scratches to it. There is a scratch generator here. Okay, and we can just basically use that. I just need to do a blend to blend these two together. And we use subtract to subtract out those scratches, and that goes to the result. Okay, now you can see we have some tiny scratches happening over here, right? Cool. Now what I can do is go here and tweak it, give it maybe more scratch. Can change the rotation. Okay. I can change the scale to make them bigger. Can change the distortions to make them do some weird stuff. And I can change the width to make them a little bit more wider. Right, so there's a lot of things we can do over here just to make it look a little bit more interesting. All right, to further beaten this guy up, we can also, have some of the areas in the middle also, getting scratched off. To do that, I can go ahead and use the same thing here. I can create a slope blur grayscale to actually blur this guy. And the blurring slope will be a cloud. Okay, and that goes to there. And then we're gonna go ahead and change the samples up and intensity down. That's gonna give me something like this. You can see like cracks or really harsh edges. Again, this slope blur does is basically blurring based on the direction of the gradients that you provide. So it's gonna blur like from white to black. And so it's gonna get smeared towards that direction, and you got something like this. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and use a histogram scan here, not range, histogram scan. That will actually allow me to only choose one portion of it and maybe have a higher contrast. Right, that gives me this really cool, like smaller details that I can use to subtract this guy out here, and that goes to this guy. Okay, and we're gonna use subtract, of course. You can see we're having smaller patches, scratched out from the surface of the model. It's not that much, so I probably need to change something over here. Okay, now one thing I can do is go ahead and change the intensity here, so I'll have like smaller shapes, lower down the contrast, higher position. You can see the tweaking of those values will change how what would happen here, right? That's beaten up quite a bit. Okay, all right, just to make this a little bit more interesting, one thing I can do is how about we change the color from red to some other colors, or maybe we can have some pieces to have one color and some other pieces to have different color. That would be cool, right? So here we do have our transformation 2D. That's going to be our actual mask to start with, and then we can go ahead and create something like a flat fill, right? Flat fill, something we were using earlier. Now we're using this to create a flat fill to fill to random grayscale. I'm gonna do that again. And you know what I'm doing here, right? I can use then a histogram scan to get some random piece out, right? And that will be used as a mask to blend two colors together, then will be passed to the base material over here for the top. So I'm gonna grab this material and say, okay, I'm gonna specify a base color over here. If I do that, I will have this base color inputs. Then I need to create a blend over here and two uniform colors. Right, Control D to duplicate. I'm blending those two together now and use that as the mask. Now if I go ahead and change this color to red, you can see I'm having some of the things now becomes red, and this one can be then something maybe gray. Right, that's cool. See, I kind of want it to be a little bit brighter. Maybe white. Alright, now I have this option to have different colors, right? Maybe I can make it a little bit more desaturated, or maybe a different color just to have some fun with it. Alright, and then I can use my histogram scan to determine like how much do I want it to be green and how much do I want it to be white, right? I can use this to change the distribution of those two colors. Alright, cool. So what else? We could actually also enhance this broken part a little bit more. Like those parts when they're broken, we can see, you know, there's a color gradient happening here. We could actually also to give this edge a little bit more detail. By use this histogram scan, right? That's the things we're using. And how about we use that to blend some color on our color. So let me drag these guys away. Okay. And then what I'm gonna do here is Control D to duplicate this guy. And I'm gonna create a blend over here, and this is the bottom. And we create another uniform color. And use that as the mask and goes to there. You can see we have the edge actually becomes a little bit darker. That's because we're using this histogram scan and it's actually blending the color, right? So that it's gonna make those open area to be a little bit darker. And here we can go to the histogram scan and just lower down the contrast to enhance that a little bit. Okay, you can see that really breaks the edge even more. To make it darker. Of course, I don't want it to be that dark. I think it's getting a little bit messy, so I'm gonna change the intensity of the blend or the opacity of the blend to make it weaker. All right, cool. All right, so this is basically some of the things we can do, right, to make it a little bit looks a little bit more interesting. And there are more things we can do, like how about we can give the reflection or the roughness a little bit more variation here also. That would be also cool. So here we can then grab this guy and say, okay, I want to change your roughness into a custom input. So let me turn that on. All right, and then I can go ahead and use a noise here, maybe a black and white spot here. And that can be basically the roughness for now, to take a look at what happens when we do that. So now actually doing a lot. Go ahead and create a, oh actually let me use cloud instead. This is a little bit too high frequency. So I'm gonna use cloud and that will be a little bit better. And we can do like a blend. So that way we can use a cloud to blend two uniform colors together. Make it grayscale, of course, Control D. All right. Okay, now we can go ahead and change some of the colors. Okay, because the roughness of the surface will look a little bit different. Okay, so it's not like entirely rough, having some variations. Okay, And we could also do a histogram scan to make that mask to have a little bit more contrast. Okay, so I can go to the positions, right? Have a little bit more contrast. Okay, that way it's gonna be more obvious what's going on here. So we can maybe make this a little bit lesser, and that can be really rough. Okay, now you can feel like the surface of the metal is changing, like its roughness is different across the surface. Okay, of course I don't want it to be completely rough, so let me lower that down. Just to have a little bit more variation down here and down, you know, for the roughness. We can do the same thing for all the others in this case. Okay, so we can also use this to change the color if you wanted to. There are so many things we can do in on this guy here. We can add extra shapes, we can refine, we can maybe make this paint to actually bump out, right? So because we do have the mask, this guy, right? And this guy then can be used to bump things out on our hat map. So here we can say, let's create a hat blend. Oops, not there. And then that goes to the bottom, and our new guy, this guy, right? So go to the top. Okay, then that goes to the results. Okay, and then we can go ahead and change the hat offset so that this goes to the top. Okay, although in our case we probably don't really want it to be that strong though, because although we have all those things, that's supposed to be a really simple thin layer of paint. We could also maybe just only use the beaten up part. That would be, you know, cleaner. That way we're having this edge just bumping out a little bit. Okay. All right. So we could also try to add details to the other part of the surface, you know, to give them more detail. But because the video is getting a little long, so let's actually call it the day, right? So I hope that those things are helpful to you. Of course, there are more things, you know, you could experiment with, but that's some of the basic ideas to create some metal structure. We can test it. Maybe a sphere. See how that feels. Okay. All right, cool. Thanks for watching.